Ahaya Bahashim Yeshaya. The first thing we're going to go into, which may take a little bit of work here, but we're going to see if we can get through it as quick as possible. We're going into the truth about Egyptology. You might have seen some of the brothers on YouTube and all these other areas teaching that all history, y'all can do this anytime y'all want, that all history comes out of Egypt, and that we are Egyptians. And you have some people online saying they are master teachers, claiming that according to their history, the Bible is a white man's book. This is their quotes. And that it's plagiarism because all the stories that you read of in the Bible were originally in ancient Egypt, and they can prove it. Now, while they do have some good points, and they're not wrong about everything, they're in error when it comes to Israel. Okay? You're going to find that the pagan deities that are worshipped in the Catholic Church today and the Christian Church are the same deities that was worshipped back in ancient Egypt. But that have nothing to do with the Bible. If you read the Bible, if they have read the Bible, they would understand that the Bible condemns paganism and the worships of Egyptology and what the pagan church is doing today. But what they do is they say, since the Catholic Church is teaching the Immaculate Conception and different things that they know was in ancient Egypt, they automatically relate it to the Bible without understanding. And any learned historian will tell you that they know for sure that all the characters, or the majority of the characters written in the Bible, are people of color. So there's no way you'll get respected if you make statements like the Bible is a white man's book. It's hard to get respect when there's historians who know that all the characters in the Bible are black people. Okay? The disciples were black. Get Acts 13:1. Let's get that first. Christ was black. And we're not saying this because we're pushing color. The Bible will tell you that. Okay? So these are unlearned statements that some of these people make to pull the children of Israel out of the Bible and then to guide them into a new philosophy like Egyptology and the science of Egyptology. But they first must make a ploy to pull you out of your own book. That's why they make unlearned statements, and only the unlearned will follow it. The first statement, when they say that the Bible is a white man's book, that's enough for you to say, you know what, this conversation is done. I'm getting out of here. Because all the historians from past history, Socrates, Josephus, all of them knew that the Israelites were black. That was second nature. Read Acts 13:1 first.
Acts 13:1. Now there were in the church that was at Antioch certain prophets and teachers as Barnabas and Simeon.
There were certain teachers such as Barnabas and Simeon. Barnabas was a disciple. Simeon is Peter, which was a disciple, which were called what?
That was called Niger.
Called what?
That was called Niger.
They were called Niger. N-I-G-E-R. Niger is black. So the disciples were called black. So when they make statements like the Bible is a white man's book, if it was a white man's book, the first thing they would have did was change that. Why would they want people to know that Peter and Barnabas and all the disciples were black? So they should learn the book before they try to discredit it. A lot of them are just repeating what their teachers told them without researching the book. All right, that's number one. Now, when it comes to science in Egypt, that comes from Egypt, and mathematics, we don't deny that greatness was in the land of Egypt. By denying that, we would be denying ourselves. But the claim we're staking is that when the children of Israel left Egypt, no new pyramids erected. That's not conjecture, that's not an opinion, that's fact. So if the Egyptians were great in all this mathematics, why there's no new pyramids being erected? Why weren't they erected after the history of the children of Israel exodus from Egypt? Now, the argument that these Egyptologists push, and they get this philosophy from a Hamitic or an Egyptian philosopher named Manethos, the philosophy they push, or what they push amongst the populace, is the Israelites did not exist. They did not exist because there's no record of Moses. This is what they say. There's no record of Moses or the children of Israel ever being in the land of Egypt. That's what they say. So by them making this record, they're saying that Israel never existed, by them saying this. Now, there's history that someone was there. Even Manethos came up with a philosophy and started pushing it through their historians, the same way the historians make up their history in America, like the European history. The Africans or the Hamitic people had their own historians to twist history. Okay? And Manethos pushed that theory that Israel wasn't in Egypt. Why? Because once the God of Israel took down Pharaoh and his army, the Pharaoh made a decree to strike all existence of Moses and Israel from Egypt, so that he wouldn't be reminded of the God that killed his son. So if you want to know why there's no history of Egypt or Israel in Egypt, is because the Pharisees had the power to strike people from history. They was calling themselves the evening and morning star. And once he got back, after he lost his chariots in the Red Sea, he went back to Egypt and sat down with his historians and say, I don't want any existence. If anyone even utter his name or show any existence, I'll have their head. So they opened up all the records and took Moses and Israel out of the records. And for the things they couldn't hide, they claimed that an Asiatic people came into Egypt, took them down for a period, and just walked away, called the Hyksos period. Now, and mind you, that's the only place in history in Egypt where people for the things they couldn't hide, they claimed that an Asiatic people came into Egypt, took them down for a period, and just walked away, called the Hyksos period. Now, and mind you, that's the only place in history in Egypt where people came in the country, ruled the country, and no one knows who they are today. We're going to prove to you that by them making that statement that they couldn't hide, the Hyksos, that they know that the children of Israel were there. They just call them a different name. They call them Hyksos, which is Hyksos. Now, we're going to go into some records. We're going to go into the Holy Bible. The Holy Bible. And we're going into, let me show you a Josephus because mine's a little tore down. Here's a Josephus. I have a very old one. But it's called The Complete Works of Josephus.
Your entry is not valid.
Okay? We're going to go into these records and prove beyond any shadow of a doubt that not only was Israel in Egypt, all the greatness in Egypt was attributed to the children of Israel. All the greatness in Egypt. And when Israel left Egypt, it became a desert. Okay? Now, let's start with Abraham. Okay? Let's start with Abraham. Let's go to the book of Josephus. What chapter are you in? The 8th chapter, right? And the 2nd paragraph. Read that.
Antiquity of the Jews, chapter 8, paragraph 2.
Go ahead.
For whereas the Egyptians were formerly addicted to different customs.
It says, for whereas the Egyptians were formerly addicted to different customs, read,
and despised one another's sacred and accustomed rites, and were very angry one with another on that account. Abraham conferred with each of them, and confuting the reasonings they made use of, everyone for their own practices, demonstrated that such reasonings were vain and void of truth.
So their philosophizing, even Abram in past history told them that their rights and the things they were dealing with were void of truth. And what did Abraham do from there? Read.
Whereupon He was admired by them in those conferences as a very wise man,
Go ahead.
and one of great sagacity when he discoursed on any subjects he undertook, and this not only in understanding, but in persuading other men also to assent to him. He communicated to them the arithmetic.
So he showed the Egyptians arithmetic. Now, mind you, Abraham was not from Egypt. He was living in the land of the Chaldees. Okay? So in his goings, he ran into Egyptians. And he showed them what?
He communicated to them arithmetic.
He showed them arithmetic. So you can't say that all arithmetic and mathematics came from Egypt. That's not the truth. Read.
And delivered to them the science of astronomy.
The science of astronomy was also taught to the Egyptians by Abram or Abraham. Read.
Your
For before
entry is
Abraham
not valid.
came into Egypt, they were unacquainted with those parts of learning.
Read that again.
For before Abraham came into Egypt, they were unacquainted with those parts of learning.
Before Abraham came into Egypt, the Egyptians did not know anything about arithmetic, science, or astronomy. So how can they say that all science and all history comes from Egypt? Read.
For that science came from the Chaldeans into Egypt, and from thence to the Greeks also.
See that? So the land of the Chaldees where Abram was had that information before Egypt. And who was living in the land of Chaldees? Abraham and his father Terah. So they was dealing with science, and the proof to you they was dealing with science and mathematics. Terah was during the time of Nimrod. And Nimrod built a tower almost to the heavens. So how could they build those towers in Genesis without arithmetic and mathematics? That blows Egypt out of the water right there. How could they have built those towers in Babylon? You understand? How could they have done that pre-Egypt if Egypt started mathematics and history? See, these brothers be putting themselves in a box. They get themselves so caught up in Egyptology and its greatness, they can't see nothing beyond that. We can see beyond that because our forefathers were in all these civilizations and made them great. So we can see past Egypt because once we left, Egypt fell. We can see past Rome because once we left Rome, Rome fell. Okay? So each civilization became great because of God's people. Through Abraham, all nations shall be blessed. You just can't look at the time period that the Most High was blessing Egypt while we were there and saying that that's the cradle of all civilization. That's unlearned. That's unlearned. Okay? First of all, and then here's another thing they claim, is that the story of Noah and the ark came from Egypt. Now, that's ridiculous in itself because Noah had 3 sons. Ham, let's get it out of the Bible dictionary. He had 3 sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. And I think, don't you think it took some mathematics to build an ark? So, who had that mathematics? They admit that the Noah's Ark, you understand, was in Egypt history. But they claim all mathematics came from Egypt when Matazarian's father Noah built an ark based on the cubits that the Most High told him to build it. That was mathematics. So even in their own history, they are contradicting themselves. Even in their own history. Because they admit that the ark happened and Noah happened. Okay, so where did Noah get the diagram to build the boat? And did he use rulers? Did it take math for that? Was not Noah Ham's father? And wasn't Ham on the boat before the Egyptians were born?
Your entry is not
That's
valid.
common sense. That's common sense. Ham was Noah's son on the boat that was built with mathematics while the Egyptians were in Ham's loins. So don't get just stuck in Egyptology and belittle yourself. because our history goes way back to Adam. Okay? Now, get Ham out of the Bible dictionary.
Ham.
Put up the Bible dictionary for those that are not familiar. 6 years before the flood. And can you get me a glass out of there? A cup? Go ahead.
And one of 8 persons to live through the flood. He became the progenitor of the dark races.
Ham became the father of the dark races. Read.
Not the Negroes.
Not the Negroes. So Ham is not the father of the Israelites or the Negroes here in America. Even Zondervan know that. But who?
But the Egyptians.
The Egyptians, which is Matazarium or Mizraim in the Bible,
Your
Africans,
entry is not
they are
valid.
not us. Read.
Ethiopians.
Ethiopians, which are Africans, which are not us. Read.
Libyans.
Libyans, which are North Africans. Read.
And Canaanites.
Canaanites, which are South Africans. These are 4 separate families that have nothing to do with the children of Israel. All 4 of these families came from Ham. So how can one today pick one of those 4 sons and claim that all history and civilization came out of one of Ham's sons, when Ham came from someone? That's common sense. If Ham came from someone, which is Noah, how can you say all life came out of Egypt? And if you have history of the boats, you'll know all history came off of the boats. All people came off of the boats. So there was no Egypt until the water settled, and Ham took his son down into that region, and the Egyptians stayed there. So Ham had to migrate into the place you called Africa in order for the Egyptians to get any history. That's common sense. All right? Now, was the Israelites in Egypt? Yes, we were. Our people were in Egypt. We were the great kings in Egypt. All right? During the Hyksos period, King Tut, Enhotep, Joseph's name was Imhotep. That was his name. Okay? We're going to get some history out of the Bible. I need you to go to Genesis, the 41st chapter and the 22nd verse. To show beyond any shadow of a doubt the history of how the Israelites got into the land of Egypt. Okay? How can we, there's another thing. There's no way we can say that the Bible is a white man's book if the Bible shows the children of Israel going into Egypt, and we know that the Egyptians were all black people. So how can this be a white man's book when it's showing Moses as a prince in Egypt? It's showing Joseph being king over all Egypt under Ramesses I. And these were all black people. So how can they make these statements that the Bible is a white man's book? Now, let's go to Genesis 7, Genesis 41 and 22. Right? You can follow us along here. Genesis 41, let's start at the 22nd verse. Read. Huh? Start at 32?
Yeah.
Genesis 41 and 32. Start there.
Genesis 41 and 32. And for that dream was
You got to
double
read a
unto
little
Pharaoh.
louder because you got the fan there.
Genesis 41 and 32. And for that dream was double unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by the Most High, and the Most High will shortly bring it to pass.
So Joseph had a dream that there will be 7 years of famine and 7 years of plenteous. Okay? And because of that dream, the Pharaoh was able to prepare his store for 7 years of famine. First there was 7 years of plenteous, and the Most High had Egypt so fertile that within that 7 years they was able to store for a 7-year famine. The Pharaoh would not have known this if it wasn't for Joseph interpreting his dream to tell him what was going on.
Your entry entry
He's seen-
is not valid.
He's seen corn and all type of plentiness in his dream, and then he's seen a dearth over the land where there was nothing, and he had no one to break it down. But Joseph, an Israelite, which is the father of the Puerto Ricans, that's who they are, was able to interpret the dream for the Pharaoh, and because of that, the people were able to survive. The brothers and sisters were able to survive in Egypt based on that dream. So the Most High rewarded Joseph in Egypt. The king rewarded Joseph in Egypt, and we're going to show that. Read.
Verse 33. Now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt.
And set him what?
And set him over the land of Egypt.
So you're going to find out that the pharaohs of Egypt set Israelites over the land of Egypt. This is in the Bible. Read.
Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the fifth part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years.
Go ahead.
And let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. And that food shall be for store to the land against 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through the famine.
See that? So it was a decree that they would set up some people over Egypt to save Egypt from the famine that was coming. Read the 37th verse.
Verse 37. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, Can we find such as one as this, a man on whom the Spirit of the Most High is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph.
He said unto who?
And Pharaoh said unto Joseph.
Joseph, the son of Israel. Read.
For as much as the Most High have showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art.
He said, you are the wisest man in Egypt right now, Joseph. Now check that out. Read.
Verse 40. Thou shalt be over my house.
Thou shalt be what?
Thou shalt be over my house.
So the king of Egypt is putting Joseph, an Israelite, over all of Egypt. Read.
And according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou.
He said, only in the throne, Joseph, will I be greater than you. That means when people see you, they're going to see a king. When you say
shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou.
He said, only in the throne, Joseph, will I be greater than you. That means when people see you, they're going to see a king. When you say a man live, a man live. When you say a man dies, a man dies. Your word will rule Egypt. Read.
Verse 41. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, See, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt.
I did what?
I have set thee over all the land of Egypt.
And I don't understand why brothers won't even accept this. It was like, we wasn't no shepherds. What good is a shepherd? The Most High always used the low of the earth to rule, so that he can show his power through us. You're saying that you can't be a shepherd or a slave in Egypt, but what are you here in America? You are a slave. If you were living back in Egypt, you'll be in the same predicament under another people. Okay, back then we were shepherds. Read on what verse you left off.
Verse 42.
Go ahead.
And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand.
Now you have to understand the significance of that ring. See, people don't understand when it comes to rulership and dominion. A ring is distinguished only for the king, so he can stamp all legislature. So if there's rules or laws that need to be passed, it would have to have the king's signet on it for it to be approved from kingdom to kingdom. It's only on the king's signet, and it's on the one ring. So no laws were decreed or passed unless it went through Joseph. They would melt the wax on the laws and stick your ring in the wax for the king's signet, or it wouldn't be law. So that's how big Joseph was. Joseph had the king's ring, that brought forth all legislation in the land of Egypt. Read.
Verse 42. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand, and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck.
So you know what Pharaoh did? Pharaoh dressed Joseph up like a what? Like an Egyptian. So when you see Joseph's tombs and his relics of Imhotep, you would think it was an Egyptian, but the Pharaoh dressed him up as an Egyptian. Kind of like we see right here. The Hebrew pharaohs of Egypt. And that's the reason when his brothers came to see him, they couldn't recognize him. Because he was dressed, he looked exactly like an Egyptian.
That's also telling you something too.
What's that?
If his brothers couldn't recognize him, that's his brother. That means if he was mistaken as an Egyptian, then his whole brothers must look like him.
Exactly. And if he was mistaken as an Egyptian, that means he must have been black just like the other Egyptians. Absolutely. But check this out. You would know your little brother. They didn't recognize him because he was dressed up like a king. He had the eye stuff going, everything. He looked just like an Egyptian king. They didn't even recognize him because he was dressed up as the king of Egypt. Who's that? Imhotep. Okay? And even in Egypt history, Imhotep came in at a point and was totally separate from the Egyptians. But that's another point. I don't want to get off the beaten path. Let's get the next scripture here. Where's that sheet at here? Let's get let's read on down to
Your
57.
entry
Finish
is
reading.
not valid.
Verse 43.
Go ahead.
And he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had.
Go ahead.
And they cried before him, bow the knee, and he made him rule over all the land of Egypt.
They made him what?
Bow the knee, and he made him rule over all the land of Egypt.
So Joseph was a ruler over all the land of Egypt. That's crystal clear. Read on.
And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name.
Read that. Hold up. Read that last part again so we can see how big Joseph was. Read that part again.
Verse 44. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt.
A man cannot do nothing unless it comes through Joseph, which was an Israelite. All right. Read on.
And verse 45. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath Paaneah,
Go ahead.
and he gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of
Potiphar.
Potipharah, priest of On.
Now, these are the Hebrew names when you break it down. These are Hebrew names. All right? Read.
And
Now,
Joseph,
when you translate them, they translate into Egypt names, but we're reading this directly translated from the Hebrew to English, so you can understand. All right? Read.
and Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt.
He was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Read.
And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh, and went throughout all the land of Egypt. And in 7 plenteous years the earth brought forth by handfuls. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities, the food of the field, which was round about every city, laid he up in the same. And Joseph gathered corn, as the sand of the sea, very, very much, until he left numbering, for it was without number. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons after the years of famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bare unto him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh.
Manasseh is your modern day Cubans. Okay? Read.
For the Most High, said he, have made me forgotten all my toil, and all my father's house.
Read a little faster. Go ahead.
And the name of the second called he Ephraim. For the Most High hath caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction.
And those are the so-called Puerto Ricans. Those 2 tribes came out of Joseph that were originally in Egypt. And believe it or not, there's a lot of Ephraimites and Manassites still in Egypt till this day. They look just like Puerto Ricans but speak Egyptian. Read.
Verse 53. And the 7 years of plenteous that was in the land of Egypt were ended, and the 7 years of dearth began to come, according as Joseph had said. And the dearth was in all lands, but in the land of Egypt there was bread. And when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, verse 56, and the famine was over all the face of the earth. And Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold unto the Egyptians. And the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. And all countries came into Egypt to Joseph for to buy corn, because that famine was so sore in the land.
You got that? Now, let's go to Genesis 42 and 1.
Genesis 42 and 1. Now when Jacob saw that there was corn in Egypt, Jacob said unto his sons, Why do ye look one upon another? And he said, Behold, I have heard that there is corn in Egypt. Get you down thither, and buy for us from thence, that we may live and not die.
So Jacob told the brothers, why y'all looking at each other? We need to eat. If there's corn in Egypt, go to Egypt so that we can live. Read.
And Joseph's 10 brethren went down to buy corn in Egypt. But Benjamin, Joseph's brother, Jacob, sent not with his brethren, for he said, Lest peradventure mischief befall him. And the sons
Take
of
your
Israel.
time. Can you see?
Yeah.
Take your time, brother. Do you need a bigger Bible?
No, I'm good.
Okay, go ahead.
And the sons of Israel came to buy corn among those that came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. For Joseph was the governor over the land.
He was what?
And Joseph was the governor over the land.
So don't tell us that Israel did not rule Egypt. Read.
And he it was that sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brethren came, and bowed down themselves before him with their faces to the earth. And Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them, but made himself stranger to them, and spake roughly unto them. And he said unto them, Whence come ye? And they said, From the land of Canaan to buy food. And Joseph knew his brethren, but they knew him not.
So why didn't his brothers know him? Because he was looking like an Egyptian. He was looking like an Egyptian. Imhotep is his name. Joseph. Let's go to Genesis 46 and 30. Let's go straight to it. Genesis 46 and 30. I don't have time to go through all the scriptures on this. We are a little late, but I want to go through them, as many as we can. Genesis 46, and start at the 30th verse.
Genesis 46 and 30. And Israel said unto Joseph, Now let me die, since I have seen thy face, because thou art yet alive. And Joseph said unto his brethren, and unto his father's house, I will go up and show Pharaoh, and say unto him, My brethren and my father's house, which were in the land of Canaan, are come unto me. And the men are shepherds.
And the men are what?
And the men are shepherds.
And the men are shepherds. Just remember that. Because the name that the Egyptians gave us means shepherd kings, which is Hyksos. We were shepherds in Canaan, and we became kings of Egypt. So the word Hyksos is how they are hiding the fact that the children of Israel ruled Egypt. It's not just the Europeans that are hiding the fact that we ruled in Egypt. The Africans are too. All the nations are against the children of Israel, including the Egyptians. And you see a lot of brothers in this Western world holding on to Afrocentric teachings and holding on to Egyptology. But if they was to go to Egypt today, they wouldn't get accepted. They can bring all their Egyptian books of the dead and all these other books they had. They go to Egypt right now and they'd be like, man, get out of our face. Okay? What verse are you at?
Verse 32.
Read it.
And the men are shepherds, for their trade hath been to feed cattle, and they have brought their flocks and their herds, and all that they have. And it shall come to pass when Pharaoh shall call you and shall say, What is your occupation?
What is your occupation? What is your occupation? Read on.
That ye shall say, Thy servant's trade have been about cattle from our youth, even until now, both we and also our fathers, that ye may dwell in the land of Goshen.
That you may dwell in the land of Goshen and do what?
For every shepherd is an abomination unto the Egyptians.
That's why they try to downplay us being shepherds. We wasn't no shepherds. All these guys are doing Egyptology.
Goshen.
Goshen was the Great Plains right outside of Egypt. So we had some of the greater plains because, you know, we were keeping the sheep and keeping the herds. You understand? So, and being a shepherd was an abomination to the Egyptians because they felt that was too, being Egyptian or being a king was too regal to
Your
tend sheep.
entry is not valid.
That was too regal of a position to tend sheep. So it was an abomination to them. You understand? So that's why today Egyptians loathe Israel. We wasn't no stinking, that's what they'll say, we wasn't no stinking sheep herders. We were kings. But yes, we were sheep herders first. And then we became kings when Joseph came over and went into Egypt, and he gave his brothers stature and rulership, and he gave them rank in Egypt. And I'm going to prove that too. Go to Genesis 47 and 6. Genesis 47, and let's start at 6.
Genesis 47 and 6. The land of Egypt is before thee, and the best of the land make thy father and brethren to dwell. And the land of Goshen let them dwell. If thou knowest any men of activity among them, then make them rulers over my cattle. And Joseph brought in Jacob his father, and set him before Pharaoh. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Jacob, How old art thou? And Jacob said unto Pharaoh, The days of the years of my pilgrimage are 130 years. Few and evil have the days of the years of my life been, and have not attained unto the days of the years of the life of my fathers in the days of their pilgrimage. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh, and went out from before Pharaoh. And Joseph placed his father and his brethren, and gave them a possession in the land of Egypt.
Gave them what?
And gave them a possession in the land of Egypt.
So he gave his own brothers a possession within the land of Egypt. Those are Israelites taking Egyptian land and becoming rulers. Read on.
And the best of the land, and the land of Ramesses as Pharaoh had commanded.
So what land did he get?
And the land of Ramesses.
So the land of Ramesses was the land of kings. The land of Ramesses were the land of kings. Now I'm going to read this out of the Hebrew pharaohs of Egypt. It reads on page 57. There are four cornerstones to the accepted theory that Joseph and the Israelites arrived in Egypt at the time of the Hyksos rulers, and the Exodus took place more than 4 centuries later in the reign of Ramesses II, the third king of the 19th dynasty. The ethnic coincidence that the Hyksos were, like the Israelites, Asiatic shepherds. The reference of the Israelites having settled at Goshen in the Ramesses region of the 19th dynasty. The ethnic coincidence that the Hyksos were, like the Israelites, Asiatic shepherds. The reference of the Israelites having settled at Goshen in the Ramesses region, which is the only mention of a pharaonic name in the Old Testament. The 400-year still issued by Ramesses II, which provided a link with Avaris, the Hyksos capital. The biblical statement that the sojourn in Egypt would last 430 years. These facts fit together so neatly in many respects that they have had an irresistible appeal for the majority of scholars. So even all the scholars knew that they were hiding the Israelites under the name Hyksos. Let's go into the book of Josephus now. Because this is the reason that this is how we know that Egypt was ruling, that the Israelites were ruling in Egypt. Hold that and get Exodus, the first chapter. Get Exodus 1. And the brothers that are in Egyptology, we know that they're going to close their ear to this. But brothers and sisters, just open yourself up, because it's not saying that you weren't the rulers of Egypt. You were. But you're not Egyptians. You're Israelites. So this is not taking away your dominion. You're taking away your future dominion by trying to hold on to an empire that the Most High already destroyed. Get Exodus, the first chapter. Yeah, we were the great kings in Egypt, but we fell. and we became slaves to Ramesses II. You got Exodus 1?
Mhm.
Start at the first verse.
Exodus 1:1. Now these are the names of the children of Israel which came into Egypt. Every man in his household came with Jacob: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan, and Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls.
So it was 70 souls that walked into Egypt. And they came out we came out a great nation. Read.
For Joseph was in Egypt already, and Joseph died, and all his brethren and all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful, and increased abundantly, and multiplied, and waxed exceeding mightily, and the land was filled with them.
So the land of Egypt started being populated by the children of Israel. We were having children like nothing there. So the Egyptians had to do what they do in the day. Population control. Read.
Verse 8. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph.
Ramesses II. This guy didn't have no respect for what Joseph did. See that? Read.
And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we.
Listen, they're growing up mightier than us. So what must we do? Read.
Come on, let us deal wisely with them. Let they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies, and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land.
So do what?
And so get them up out of the land.
So we were ruling the land of Egypt for them to say, get them out of the land. So they moved us all into the Goshen area. Originally, we were up with Ramesses first. Y'all see that? We were the governors all amongst that area. Until Ramesses II moved us out of the land. Read that part again.
Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies, and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh treasures, cities, Pithom, and Ramesses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew.
So who built Pithom and Ramesses for the Egyptians? The Israelites. That's common sense. That now I understand why there's no history of any new pyramids being erected. Because the Egyptians didn't do that. The Israelites, which were under the Egyptian rules, did that and built the great pyramids. Because once Israel left, no new pyramids erected. Common sense. And let's go back into, I have one other thing to get, because we all know that Moses became a great king or a great prince among Egypt. All right? Let's go to Acts the 7th chapter, and then we're going into the book of the Josephus. And I want you to hold that so we can go back to Genesis 46 along with the Josephus, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You got it?
Mm-hmm.
Read Acts 7. And please read the 22nd verse. Read that.
Acts 7:22. And Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians.
It says, and Moses was learnt in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. Read.
And was mighty in the words and deeds.
See that? He was mighty in the words and deeds. So Moses was walking and acting like a what? Egyptian. He was dressing like a what? An Egyptian. All right? So Israelites during the whole Hyksos period. If you want to, you can go type in Hyksos period, and you can see all the great technology in Egypt really came during that period that we were there. All the great history, the plumbing systems, how to build certain things, all came during the time the Israelites were ruling in Egypt. Now, let's get the book of Josephus. All right, we're in the part Flavius Josephus against Apion. Okay? Flavius Josephus against Apion. The reason he was coming up against these philosophers is because Josephus was an Israelite. And he was coming against these philosophers because these philosophers were joining together to try to make the name of Israel extinct. They were upholding their own society's history and trying to demean or belittle the history of our people. So Josephus had to make a stand against these philosophers, letting them know, listen, you can promote your history without demeaning. The Lord was blessing us to make your history great.
Your entry is
All right?
not valid.
Read the 13th verse.
Verse 13.
Read that.
Let us now put the case, therefore, that we made use of this argument concerning the Grecians, in order to prove that their nation was not ancient, because nothing is said of them in our records.
So there's nothing great about the Grecians' history. Let's make that clear. That's what Josephus was saying. So don't even try to philosophize because the Grecians and the Romans got all their history from ancient Babylon and Egypt. So he set down the Grecians philosophers first. Like, listen, y'all can go over there and sit in the corner somewhere, because y'all didn't bring nothing to civilization. Y'all stole everything. The Grecians and Romans stole all, even worships they stole. They didn't even originate in worships. So he told the Grecians, listen, y'all can get over there somewhere. Because if it wasn't for the history and the science of Egypt, there would be no Greece. Go down to the paragraph 14, in the middle of 14, which says, now this false relations of Egyptian affairs. Read it nice and loud so they can hear it.
Now this Manetho, in the second book of his Egyptian history, writes concerning us in the following manner.
Manethos is spelled M-A-N-E-T-H-O. He's the African or the Egyptian historian that the Egyptians used as their key reference. He's the guy that lied on Egypt to say that Egypt was greater than any other kingdom.
Your entry
And he's
is
the
not
guy
valid.
that started promoting the fact, or what they called the fact, that the Israelites were never in Egypt. He was paid as a historian to strike us in philosophers' circles and all the great historians' circles. Read.
Now this Manetho, in the second book of his Egyptian history, writes concerning us in the following manner. I would set down his very words, as if I were to bring the very man himself into a court for a witness.
He said, listen, I'm going to open up the book of Manethos as if we are in court right now, to prove to you that this man is straight lying. Go ahead.
There was a king of ours, whose name was Timaeus.
What page you on? Okay, I got you.
There was a king of ours, whose name was Timaeus. Under whom it came to pass, I know not how, that the Most High was averse to us. And there came after a surprising manner men of ignoble birth out of eastern parts, and had boldness enough to make an expedition into our country, and with ease subdued it by force, yet without our hazarding a battle with them. So when they had gotten those governed us under their power, afterwards burnt down our cities and demolished the temples of the gods.
See that? Read that last part again.
There was a king of ours whose name was Timaeus. Under whom it came to pass, I know not how, that the Most High was averse to us. And there came after a surprising manner men of ignoble birth out of eastern parts, and had boldness enough to make an expedition into our country, and with ease subdued it by force, yet without our hazarding a battle with them. So when they had gotten those that governed us under their power, they afterwards burnt down our cities and demolished the temples of the gods.
So now, here's what was written in Manetho's book. That some guys came through and burnt down their temples and started making mockery and destroying their gods. When he knew that was a lie. When we came into Egypt, we didn't burn their gods. We voluntarily took down their gods because Israel only worshiped one God. So now they're trying to demean us. Manethos is trying to demean us in his studies by saying that some people just came and started killing everybody and taking down their gods. When before this history that Manethos wrote, that was nowhere in Egyptian history written anywhere, or in world history. Read. Go down here to the, what verse is that?
82.
This whole nation. Read that.
This whole nation was styled Hyksos.
What chapter so that they can follow you? What book you in?
Flavius Josephus against Apion.
What book you in?
Book 1,
Book 1, what part?
verse 13, paragraph 13, verse 82.
13, paragraph 82. Read it.
This whole nation was styled Hyksos. That is shepherd kings.
This whole nation was what?
Styled Hyksos. That is shepherd kings.
That's chapter 14. It says, this whole nation is styled what?
This whole nation was styled Hyksos. That is shepherd kings.
That is shepherd kings. Hope y'all can see that. Hykcos. So what Manethos did to hide the fact that the Israelites were in Egypt was lied and said some Asiatic people came by the name of Hyksos and took down our gods, and no one knows who they are today. But yet, even though they teach that in Egyptology, they teach there's no such thing as Israelites. Could it be that these are the Israelites that they're trying to strike from their records? That they're calling Hyksos or shepherd kings? Read that part again.
This whole nation was styled Hyksos. That is shepherd kings.
That is shepherd kings. What people were dealing with the sheep and the goats? The children of Israel. They were shepherds when we were in the land of Canaan. We went into Goshen. We were given great parts of Egypt. We didn't come in and fight against them. Joseph gave us that land from the king. That was his reward. His reward to our people was that they can live in Goshen. We were shepherds. And Joseph set us up as kings. That's what Hyksos means. Shepherd kings. You got it?
It said also that the Semitic people who invaded Egypt and ruled.
See that? The history of the Hyksos is what?
It says
A Shemitic people
who invaded Egypt and ruled it.
who invaded Egypt and did what?
And ruled it.
And ruled it.
It said they introduced
See, but they had to make
themselves.
us, they had to make us infamous. They had to write us in their history as like we did something wrong. When really, if it wasn't for Joseph living in Egypt, Egypt would have died from the 7-year famine. So instead of them telling the truth, because you can't hide over 400 years of existence of a people in a country, they had to lie and say that we came as some, what you would call unwelcome conquerors, and took down their land and destroyed their gods. And by them writing this, the Egyptian children grew to hate us after we left, because that's the history they was taught in their schools and in their institutions of learning. So they learned the lies that was handed down through who? Through Manethos, the African historian. And that's the same historian the Egyptians and the Egyptology teachings are following today. Okay, finish reading where you are there.
Hick, according to the sacred dialect, denotes a king, as is so a shepherd. But this according to the ordinary dialect, and of these is compounded. But the same. But
I need you to go down to 84. Read 84.
But Manetho goes on.
But Manetho goes on and say what?
These people, whom we have before named kings and called shepherds, also and their descendants, as he says, kept possession of Egypt 511 years.
See that? So Manethos skewed the numbers. Now, how can a people be over in Egypt over 300-400 years and no one know who they are? And this is for you Egyptologists out there. Look up Hyksos, and you tell us whether or not these people existed in Egypt. You don't call them Israel because Manethos lied to you and told you that they was Hyksos. But can you deny that the Hyksos was there under Egyptian history? No. And you're going to find that those Hyksos people were us, the shepherd kings. And we ruled, and during the time of the Hyksos, the greatest history was written in Egypt during the period we ruled Egypt. All right? Now, that's just the truth. Why? Let's get Isaiah. Let's get Jeremiah 10. This is, see, you have to realize in the scriptures, the Most High says through Abraham, all nations shall be blessed. So how does that happen? The children of Israel go from nation to nation, and where they inhabit, they don't mind. Now these people that I'm showing you are all the kings and queens during the Hyksos period. These are not Egyptians at all. Alright? These are what they call Hyksos. This is a sister Tuyas. This is her mummy. This is her mummy. Now the embalming was way greater in technology today. There's no way today that you can have something that have been embalmed and tuned for over thousands of years intact like this. Y'all see that? Now let's see how she looked before she was mummified. Let's see.
Your entry is not valid.
That's crystal clear. That's during the Hyksos period. We were the kings and queens of Egypt during the Hyksos. It cannot be denied. So yeah, they'll tell us, well, Israelites are not written in Egyptian history. But Hyksos is. So who are they? They are shepherd kings. Look up the word Hyksos and you know they're shepherd kings. Who are the shepherds and kings? The Israelites. You can't deny that, even in Egyptology. Or you can believe the story Manethos gave you. That some people came and ruled Egypt for over 200 years and disappeared off the earth and no one knows who they are. You can buy that story if you want. Or you can just go with the story in the Bible. At least it's giving you a history of some people that came there and you have history of a time period of when they left. It's easier to go with the story than trying to cover up a big fat lie. What historian will believe that some people popped out of nowhere, that from no family on the earth these people derived from? They just popped in Egypt, enough to take down all of Egypt now. It must have been hundreds of thousands of these people that no one knows who they are. Chilled in Egypt for over 300 years, then disappeared. Come on now. Y'all know, you know you ain't right with some of y'all teachings. I don't want to go into the Bible. The Bible is a white man's book. That's the problem, brother. Instead of you going into the Bible, your teacher told you that to keep you from yourself. You never even examined the book to see if it was a white man's book. You just believed your teachers. He showed you all the Egyptian greatness and all the inventions during that time. And you got stuck in Egyptology. We're not denying the fact that there was greatness in Egypt. But there was greatness every place Israel inhabited. Why stop at Egypt? Look at the greatness here. The Egyptians didn't have a capsule that can go out into space. So even America in technology is greater than the Egyptians now. Now there's more. I got something else here. Look at this Hyksos queen. Now somebody try to get Gwyneth Paltrow from this. A Hyksos queen. She's not African. She's Shemitic. Or what? Here's another lie. They was Asiatic. What nation is that? They use all these names to hide the fact that these people are the children of Israel, or they're Asiatic. Come on, man. Either they're Hamitic, Shemitic, or Japhetic. Let's not muddy the waters. They're from either Noah's son Ham, Shem, or Japheth. All right. So that proves another thing. That proves that the Israelites must have been black, since we know the Egyptians are and were black.
Your entry is not valid.
I got something else for you. King Tut was an Israelite. If you look at the history of King Tut, he ruled during the Hyksos period. Can you get Charleston Heston out of that? And this sister right here, features were so defined, they had to chip her nose off. They had to chip her nose off. Her features were so defined. Napoleon was behind a lot of that, shooting the nose off and knocking the noses off. All this to hide the history of the children of Israel. Hold up. Somebody get Tom Cruise out of that. And the reason we're showing this because how deep do the rabbit hole go? All the nations have conspired together to hide the fact that the children of Israel are God's people in this earth. You don't want to give us any credit, but you'll use us to build your empires. So there must be something great about us. There must be something about us that's great if every empire needs us to build. Okay? Now, the age of Imhotep compared to Joseph was skewed through Manethos. They switched the dynasty lineages so that they don't link up purposely. Now, there's more. Oh, they examined everything before they did it. You have question time in a moment. We're not going nowhere because we got a meeting anyway. Y'all can hang with me tonight, right? Okay. You have question time in a moment. We're not going nowhere because we got a meeting anyway. Y'all can hang with me tonight, right? Okay. All right. Get Psalms 83 and let's start at the first verse.
Psalms 83 and 1. Keep not thou silence, O power. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O power. For lo, thy enemies make a tumult.
So the enemies are the other nations that are following these other gods. A tumult is an uprising. Read.
And they that hate thee have lifted up their heads.
So the nations hate the Most High because they're following other gods and they don't believe in keeping the commandments of the Most High. When you break the commandments of the Most High, that's a sign of hatred towards Him. Read.
Verse 3. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people.
So you other nations and these governments of this earth have taken crafty counsel against God's people. Y'all come together and one consent. It's going to show that. Read.
And consulted against thy hidden ones.
And they all have consulted against the Most High hidden ones. The Most High's people are hidden because your historians have been lying on them. All the greatness of His people have been skewed and lied on, and you put up your people in history over God's people. Read.
They have said, come, and let us cut them off from being a nation.
They said what?
Come, and let us cut them off from being a nation.
Let's set up historians and cut the children of Israel off from being a nation. So instead of them seeing themselves, somebody give me that Caesar Borgia book. Where that guy at? Let me see if I got him up in here. me see if I have him. They said what?
Come, and let us cut them off from being a nation.
Hold up. Let's cut them off from being a nation. There you go. Let's tell them that we're Jesus Christ. Why are they not trying to be, why the other nations are not trying to be each other? I've never seen the Catholic Church trying to act like Buddha was white. Why they gotta hide our history? Let us cut them off from being a nation. Not only did they put up this guy to be an Israelite, and this dude was an Italian. Now how do you get that? How do you get Israel out of an Italian, man? They're not the only people that did this. Okay? The Africans did it. By lying and calling us Hyksos. Because you could not hide the fact that people were living in your land over 200, 300 years. So you had to call it a different name. Read that part again. What did they say they're going to do?
They have said, come, and let us cut them off from being a nation.
Let's cut the children of Israel off from being a nation, read.
That the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance.
So that people will not remember that they are the children of Israel. So let's call them Hyksos. Oh, that's not a people. Oh, let's call them Asiatic. And it's the people without an identity scrambling to get an identity, and you wonder why. And the only thing you can point to is the white man. The white man could not have did this by himself. The Africans did it to you too. Wake up, you guys that are in Egyptology. You're going from one slave place to another. Oh yeah, I was free in Egypt. You were a slave in Egypt. We were kings until Ramesses II said, get them out of the land before they become too great and take us down. And they started killing us. They started killing our man-child. That's why Moses had to survive on the waters into Egypt. They were killing us, man, and you trying to uphold the Egyptians. Read.
Verse 5. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee.
They are a confederate against us. All the nations' governments are against us. They've hit us. Why? Because we are more valuable to them sleep. They can still use our spirit to gain access and to gain finances in the earth. They can use our hands and our will and our manpower and our women. But how can they use it if we decide to start using it for ourselves? So they must lie to us. They have to keep the lie going to take advantage of our spirit, to come up on our ignorance. So the nations need us sleep. Read that last part again.
For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee.
They are confederate against us. Read.
The tabernacles of Edom.
Edom is the so-called white man. Now, this is the governments of the Edomites. There are good white people that have been lied to, as well as our people. But the governments of the Edomites are the head people that are behind the lie of hiding the children of Israel. Here's a perfect example. Chinese people didn't do this. Even Africans didn't do this. Okay? Arabs didn't do this. Arabs made up their own prophet, Muhammad. But Edom were the first people that put up their own people as the children of Israel. And I'll tell you this, even the Egyptians had enough respect not to call themselves Hyksos. They didn't identify themselves with us at all. They just separated themselves. But not Edom. Edom said, listen, I'm going to be me and you too. There ain't nothing you can do about it. I'm everybody. Yes, I'm the Romans. And I'm the Jews that we chased into Africa. I'm the Romans and the Jews. Y'all, you people, y'all too dumb to ever figure it out anyway, because y'all don't read. I'm going to put up an Italian to be you. Y'all don't know any better. Here's an Italian for you. Here's your God. Call him Jesus. Here he is. Edom. Read.
The tabernacles of Edom.
Go
and
ahead.
the Ishmaelites.
The Ishmaelites. Right under Edom is who? Say it again.
And the Ishmaelites.
A big part of us being destroyed in Christianity. And what's the next biggest religion? Islam. Through Ishmael. They're the second. That's a part of our destruction. Ishmaelites came to you with Islam and were converting us. They were converting us. Their whole conquest was to spread this over into our lands, into Africa and all those different regions that we lived in. We didn't need that. We already had a culture. But they brought it anyway, talking about Arabs. So the white man didn't do it by himself. The Arabs did it too, to take advantage of us. Read.
And the Ishmaelites of Moab, and the Hagarenes.
The Moabs and the Hagarenes, these are all people on the borders of Israel. Moab would be your modern day Palestinians. Ammon is your Jordanians, people that live on the outer skirts of Israel, all those Arab nations. Read.
Gebal, and Ammon, and Amalek, the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre. Asher also was joined with them. They have hope in the children of Lot.
They have hope in the children of Lot. Read.
Do unto them as unto the Midianites, as to Sisera, as to Jabin, and took at the brook of Kishon.
So the Most High, so here it is. David is praying that the Most High take these nations down for destroying the identity of Israel out of the earth. Read.
Verse 10. Which perished at Endor, they became as dung for the earth. Make their nobles like Orab and Zeeb, yea, all their princes like Zabah
And Zamonia.
and Zamonia.
So that's why they're being cursed till this day. And they're falling through these wars that you see today because they lied on us, because they've done this and skewed history throughout the whole earth. Now the Lord is paying them back through these wars you see today. Read.
Verse 12. Who said, let us take to ourselves the houses of the Most High possession.
Read it again.
Who said, let us take to ourselves the houses of the Most High possession.
So if you can cut these people off from being a nation and hide their true identity, you can use them for a
Your
possession.
entry is not valid.
Y'all see that? So now these people are used for possession because they have no identity. And that's why you have one nation of people up in everything. You're a Christian, you're a Muslim, you're Egyptologist, you're an atheist, you're all over the place because you have no identity. You have no identity. You are the hidden ones written of in the scriptures. You are the hidden ones, children of Israel. So don't try to go to the people that have hid you for information to better yourself. It's their job to lie on you. So you don't go to Manethos, the Hamitic philosopher. Josephus put him in check. Don't go to Socrates and all these nations' philosophers. They were paid to suppress your history. That's why they were set up, to suppress you. So I had to put this out there because there's a lie going on that Israel never existed. How can you deny yourself when you're not even accepted by any Egyptians? We're the children of Israel. And there's no new pyramids erected in Egypt. And why? Because we're no longer in Egypt. Judah is here now. Judah is here. We're Judah. Okay, all right. One moment.